Connor?
Yes, Steve?
Are we recording?
I think so.
Are you recording? Am I recording?
Yes.
Connor, is life meaningless?
Is what meaningless?
Is life meaningless?
Sometimes. If you're Quicksilver in this movie, it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the conclusion to our X-Pedition. We're here. We're at the New World, Connor.
We are.
We're at a Disney-owned 20th Century Fox world. And
It's the darkest timeline.
This dumb thing that we did that was supposed to take like a couple days and maybe like an hour or so of your time, ladies and gentlemen, has now traversed months and several hours if you've actually watched all of these.
Wait, I should actually, when these are all done, edit how many hours we've talked about X-Men like on film.
So far we have 4 that have. This one's definitely going longer than an hour.
Yeah, it is.
I think we're.
My guess
2.
is at the end of it, we will have 7 hours we talked about X-Men.
I don't think that much. I think 6.
6. Okay, can I say something funny really quick that's related to this movie?
Yeah, I haven't even introduced it yet, though.
Oh, okay. And introduce it, then I'll say something really funny for some reason was in my head.
Ladies and gentlemen, today we watched Dark Phoenix, despite it saying X-Men here. The movie is Dark Phoenix. This is just for marketing purposes. It just makes it easier. When you watch the movie, it says Dark Phoenix. From the year of our Lord, Connor?
2019.
2019. Written and directed by Simon Kinberg. He finally got his shot at the plate, directing his own big boy movie. Say whatever the fuck you were going to say.
Okay, so I had the most bizarre Mandela effect with this movie.
Okay, shoot.
You know Quicksilver's, like, not Quicksilver scene, and it's just, like, score behind it?
Yeah.
I shit you not, Steve. I remembered Backstreet Boys being behind it.
This is 92.
I know. Steve, I couldn't... When I was I was thinking earlier today, I was like, okay, like, Quicksilver scene. They're like, everybody, yeah.
It was, like, 6 years
Dude,
later.
But here's the thing. Why... Obviously, like, maybe just I associate Backstreet Boys with the 90s so much. I couldn't tell you why I thought that was in the beginning of that scene.
Backstreet's Back...
That was not 92.
I think is our lifetime.
Yeah, so it's like late 90s?
97. I'm a little off. It's a little before our time.
Yeah, it's a year before.
Was,
we were ideas.
It was still getting radio play when we were like little kids.
Yeah.
I remember that song.
No, but I have no clue why my brain just auto-corrected that. But
yeah, I can't explain that either.
No.
You mentioned it last week. I forgot how little Quicksilver is in this.
Yeah.
Mainly because after Days of Future Past, Quicksilver doesn't really matter.
No.
He's not that great in Apocalypse. I don't think that's anything against Evan Peters specifically. I think he was sort of a joke in Days of Future Past, and he was great, and everyone loved him, and they didn't know what to do with him afterwards.
Yeah.
What do we usually do on these? It's been such a long...
Well, we usually just like winged it back in the day. But now we do the thing where we kind of like have general thoughts and we go into my notes. Did you want to do your comic corner?
Let's do general thoughts first,
right.
And then we'll get into
Do you want to start with negatives, talking points, or positives?
No, I want to know, what's your experience with Dark Phoenix?
Okay.
When did you see it? How did you feel on the rewatch, etc., etc.?
I saw it in theater back in 2009.
You went back 10 years before it came out?
2019. I was about to get into like a serious part, so I fucked up the year. When I did see this movie back a year ago, I was like in a really weird, dark point in my life for some reason. Like I was like not a happy boy. So I saw the movie and was like, X-Men. I like X-Men. And I thought the movie was better than it actually was.
Mm-hmm.
So I did not like it nearly as much this time around. Like I was telling you off recording, this is the one I have the most difficult time like pinpointing exactly my feelings on it. Because there's not much I really connect to. And even scenes that I thought were really cool, like a year ago, like the train sequence, still kind of falls flat for me now.
Yeah.
And that's a real bummer, because like when I saw it, I was like, that's one of the best action scenes in all of X-Men. Then I watch it this time, and I'm like, a lot of this isn't good.
I wouldn't say isn't good.
I think, we'll get to it, I think there's 2 characters that have a cool fight scene in that like whole sequence. Like their powers are used cool.
Yeah.
The rest of them are just kind of bland. We'll go in negatives. There is one fight scene in this that's the worst one in the franchise.
We'll get into it. Should I go now? Should I go now?
Your general thoughts.
When this movie came out, it was also at a very strange point in my life. I was 2 months out of a very terrible breakup, Connor?
Around, yeah.
Yeah. And my nephew had just been born 2 weeks before, so that was really exciting. My parents and I had driven out to Michigan to visit my brother and the mother of my nephew and my nephew. And my dad and I, it was like a 3-4 day trip. And there was one night, it was like either the Friday or Saturday this came out. My mom and my brother and the mother of my nephew were watching him, and my dad and I snuck out and we saw X-Men in a mostly empty theater in Michigan because this movie didn't do well in the box office. And I felt really sad the entire time because this. We'll get into our thoughts on the movie. I actually don't think it's that bad. I think it's pretty okay for a lot of it. Mm-hmm. It's just not a grand finale for the X-Men franchise.
No.
One franchise that I hold a lot of affection for, as you can tell, because we've
done
this fucking thing.
Yeah.
It just kind of felt like a wet fart.
Mm-hmm.
And even that's probably being a little too cruel to the movie.
Yeah.
But that's just what it felt like. And revisiting it, I think the movie's pretty uneven. It's kind of half-baked. But I was surprised how much I enjoyed it. I think it's kind of solid.
I still stand by what I said last week, where there's no bad X-Men movies. I think this one and one in near proximity to it on my list are the only two I'd consider almost to the level of being bad, but they're not. They're still good, like okay movies.
There are X-Men movies that I like more than this movie that I would say are worse than this movie. We'll go into that when we get to our rankings at the end of this.
Yeah.
But I think in terms of quality, I would put this like right in the middle. I think that's the main problem with this movie. It just doesn't leave much of any sort of impression.
Yeah.
It's not outrageously terrible, and it's not excellent. It's just sort of...
The things I am left with at the end of this movie are there are two performances I think are strong, and we'll get to in the positives. There's one actor that I think is not great, that actually kind of like impressed me in this movie.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we'll get to it.
Very interesting. Can I just highlight one thing on the technical end?
Yeah, go for it.
So I have this 4K Blu-ray. I don't own a 4K television, but I'm buying current stuff on 4K for eventually when I get a 4K television. But my Xbox plays 4K Blu-ray, so I'm like, why don't I just fucking watch the 4K? It comes with like the crazy 7.1 Dolby Atmos.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, I don't have like any surround sound system at all, but on my regular ass TV speakers, this movie sounds excellent.
Oh, awesome.
So it's just a very impressive mix. I mean, that's probably the ultimate example of how lackluster this movie is, that I was impressed by the sound mix.
Yeah. I found myself noticing the score a lot more in this movie, too.
You know what's so fucking funny?
What?
When this movie came out last year, everyone's just like, Dark Phoenix sucks, but the score is mwah, mwah. Like, everyone was all on Hans Zimmer's score, and I'm like, I didn't never notice the score. I think it's a good score.
Yeah.
I think it's utterly not worth noting. It kind of just sounds like a Hans Zimmer score at times. Not to the same extent of blobs, but...
Yeah, I usually never, like, notice the score. That's why it never, like, sticks with me. And there was a couple times during this movie I was like, I like the score.
The score is good. It's I would say it's the best X-Men score because it's the only one of, like, notes that you, like, notice. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you don't necessarily want to notice the score.
Yeah.
But again, that might just be down to how fucking lackluster this movie is.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you have notes?
I have notes.
I'll follow your lead again.
What do you want to start with? Talking points?
Sure.
Okay. So I did some more movie math. They made it
Okay.
easier this time because they told us a lot of it. So Jean is 8 in 1975.
Yeah.
That means she's 25 in 1992.
Mm-hmm.
So that means, well, Charles and Eric and Hank are all in their 50s, obviously. With Eric being the oldest one, right? Because he was born
Probably.
pre-Holocaust. He was at least maybe 12 in the opening of First Class.
Yeah, I would say so.
So he's the oldest. He's in his late 50s. The rest of them are in their early 50s.
Yeah.
They look great.
Yeah, they look excellent.
It's maybe just me. This isn't a talking point, something I noticed. Nicholas Hoult looks older in this movie. Not 50, but he looks like older.
Older than he did in, like, Apocalypse?
Yeah.
Do we just want to go into how the 90s stuff doesn't...
It doesn't factor in at all.
Not only does it not feel like the 90s, and that's already kind of a problem. Like, down to, like, the furniture and most of their wardrobe, it just looks modern.
Yeah.
Which, like, the 90s doesn't have as set of an aesthetic as the previous
Yeah.
every decade that came in the 20th century. And it probably comes to, like, it's closer to our lifetime. But, like, I've seen photos from when this movie takes place the year that my parents got married.
Mm-hmm.
And the age that my parents were at that time are pretty much the age of all of our young X-Men in this movie.
Yeah.
They don't dress like my parents and my parents' friends from that time. I've seen photos.
Yeah, I'm Googling 1992 fashion right now.
Yeah.
And yes, they did not dress like this.
But not only that, like, the key to a good period piece is not just stuff that's current of that era,
Yeah.
but there should also be stuff from, like, a decade or two previous scattered about as well.
Yeah.
Because that's how life is. People continue to use stuff.
I liked Mystique's slight bell-bottom jeans.
I guess. I liked that her hair was different this time. It was more comic
Yeah.
accurate. She had more of the bob. I don't think this movie should have taken place in 1992.
Maybe later 90s.
No, I think it should have just been like I feel like if you weren't going to care about the 80s, like the decade stuff to begin with, why even push it another 9 years? Push it like 5 years.
It's what they've always done. That's like, why not?
I have a theory.
Mm-hmm.
Because the movie opens with them saving a space shuttle.
Yes.
I don't think they wanted to imply that they saved the Challenger.
Oh.
Because that, I believe, is 87.
Yes. That's
It would
a
have
good
made
point.
it would have made more sense for this movie to take place like 3-4 years after Apocalypse, not 9. I think they wanted to avoid that, and they needed a reason to go into space.
Yes.
So Jean could be hit by fucking cosmic radiation. Or whatever the Phoenix is.
Yeah. It's a life force of some kind.
Yeah. I don't think the Phoenix needs to be defined in any specific way.
Oh, my thing is, I get they want to do a little more close to like the Phoenix stuff in the comics, but you already see her do Phoenix in Apocalypse. So do you need like the space explanation?
Here's the thing. This is a hell of a stretch, but I'm willing to make this argument. One could argue that the Phoenix is an embodiment of Jean Grey's spirit, and the space radiation or whatever releases it.
Okay.
And enhances it and makes it more powerful.
So she's like a bird. She's only gonna. Well, what's the rest of that song?
I
only fly
I'm
away.
gonna fly away.
Yeah, she only flies
I don't know
away.
where my home is.
Yeah.
I don't know where my home is. That's the argument.
Here's the thing. That makes sense. I don't like it, but it makes sense.
I think you've just described the Dark Phoenix saga.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want? Any other general talking points you want to talk about?
I like Charles' tri-wheelchair. The little wheel on the back.
I didn't even notice that.
Oh yeah, he has a little tricycle
I like that
wheelchair.
the back.
It has an X, a blue X. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. This is a space question.
Mm-hmm.
I get why Quicksilver didn't need a helmet when he was going too fast. Him and Nightcrawler were in the shuttle for like maybe a second.
Yeah.
But why, when they go back, do they give Kurt a helmet and not Jean?
I thought about that too. Well, she's telekinetic. You could make an argument that she makes a little...
Maybe. We don't see that, though.
We don't see it. Here's the thing. I thought about it. I'm like, she's magic. This movie's gonna tell us that she's literally magic. I don't care.
Okay. That was just something that I noticed that bugged me since the theater.
I noticed that this time as well. And, whatever.
Yeah. Okay, so when they come back after visiting the space shuttle, you know, there's all those signs?
Yeah.
One of them, there's a typo in one of them. I don't know if the art department did it on purpose or whatever, but it says Mystic instead of Mystique. One of the signs.
Interesting.
Yeah. And then I also love the Marry Me Scott sign that's in the corner.
I didn't notice that. The only one that I noticed was X-Men Forever.
Yeah.
And the 4 is the letter 4, and it looked like the Fantastic Four logo.
Mm-hmm. No, there was that one. There was Marry Me Scott. There was one that just said Nightcrawler. And then Mystic that had, like, it was a heart shape and it said Mystic.
Did I say the letter 4 or did I say the number 4?
I think you said letter, but I knew what you meant. Steve, don't feel bad. I didn't doubt it for a second. I didn't question it. I was like, yeah, the letter 4. Dude, believe me, don't feel bad. I didn't even catch that.
Oh, God.
Because I also like the girl has the Mystique action figure, too.
Action figure. Yeah,
It's
I
cool.
like that.
Because the X-Men are, like, actual, like, celebrities now. To some
Yeah.
extent. Because they have
Yeah.
toys.
Mm-hmm. President Brian Darcy James is a fan.
Yeah. They know their real names, which kind of threw me up. Like, Jean, I understand, because Jean Grey. But the fact they know Cyclops' name is Scott Summers.
I mean, the X-Men have never been big on the whole secret identity thing.
Yeah.
Because Marvel, in general, is big on that concept, with the exception of, like, Iron Man.
Yeah.
The X-Men have always been sort of outside of that. I mean, there's always been sort of, like, government interference with them. So there's always been things where, like, lists of mutants are out there and shit like that. And, like, everyone knows where the X-Men are. They're in the fucking
they're in
school.
They're in the Jean Grey School for Gifted Youngsters.
Yeah. I like that. I like that.
We'll talk about
I think it's fine. I think it's cute. Yeah, secret identity stuff has never been big in X-Men comics compared to other superhero stuff.
That's true.
I don't mind that too much.
Speaking of the Marvel Universe in general, talk about the MCU in this movie. My voice cracked so bad when I said that.
Mutant Contain Unit.
Mutant Contain Unit.
I fucking love it.
It's pretty sad.
That was like the one thing, not the one thing, but it was like the main thing of the theater. I'm like, I see you. I see you.
No, I didn't even notice that in the theater at first. Like, I think it said MCU, but I was like, okay. I didn't even think about, like, what the MCU was.
No, I noticed that immediately.
The MCU's trying to take their mutants away.
It's cute.
That merger pending, I see you.
Yeah, the merger, the production history of this is so weird. I thought about doing a little, like, refreshing on the production history of this, but so much of it has been, like, kind of covered up because by the time this movie came out, the merger had gone through.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff that we just don't know. Besides the fact that there were reshoots, because this was supposed to come out
February.
Bohemian Rhapsody. No, it was supposed to come out in November. It was going to be they put Bohemian Rhapsody in its slot.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was supposed to come out Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
And then it got pushed to July.
Because wasn't it... It was in the Valentine's Day slot for, like, a week, right?
Yeah. It was a weird thing where it got pushed, like, very quickly.
Yeah, because they had the trailer out. It might have been, like, 3 days later. It was crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it said February, and then I think you're right. Yeah, it was, like, within a week. That was no longer the case.
Yeah. Because it would have come out I think it was literally Valentine's Day.
It was the Valentine's Day weekend. I don't know when Valentine's Day fell. But it was supposed to be in November. It was supposed to be a November release.
Wow. Alright. And then that's all my talking points, yeah.
Is that all your talking points?
Yeah, I don't have much. Here's the thing. There's not much to talk about with this movie, I feel like.
Is this going to be an insanely short episode?
No, we're starting to talk for a long time. We still have positives and negatives, baby.
Okay. At this point, do you want me to go into my comic corner?
If you into your comic corner, go for it.
So the Dark Phoenix Saga isn't good. Probably the most controversial thing I'll say. A little bit of context. So the X-Men existed, created by Stan Lee and Jack Kirby in the early 1960s. It was mildly popular compared to other books, was never as big as Spider-Man and the Fantastic Four. It was pretty big with college kids, though, and then it sort of went away. And it sort of existed in the tertiary. New characters like Wolverine were introduced. Wolverine was actually introduced in the Hulk. He was a Hulk villain for like 2 issues, and then sort of gained a following, and then they retconned him the fact that he was a mutant, just like the X-Men. So in the mid-70s, giant-sized X-Men #1 releases, and it's the sort of a reboot, a relaunch of the X-Men title as a whole. And that was written by Chris Claremont. And then Chris Claremont goes on to write X-Men for like 18 more years. And the X-Men, pretty much as we know them now, is entirely defined by that insane decades-long run by Chris Claremont. By the time Chris Claremont starts in the X-Men in the mid-70s, and by the time he ends, the comic book industry has completely changed. Frank Miller's Dark Knight Returns and Alan Moore's Watchmen come along in 1986. It completely redefines what a comic book or a graphic novel is. They put more emphasis on a cinematic style of comic book storytelling, and that sort of defines the modern era. Chris Claremont's X-Men is that last vestige of the truly like serialized comic, where it was a big emphasis on monthly adventure to monthly adventure, and they all span this insane mythology, which is part of the reason why the Dark Phoenix Saga doesn't work in a modern context, because it's 130-something issues into an insanely long run that would then run again for another like 200 issues. The Dark Phoenix Saga isn't even the entire story. It's a continuation of an arc that happened like 5 years prior. So Jean Grey, like the beginning of this movie where she gets hit by cosmic rays and stuff, she becomes Phoenix in like the late 70s. And then the Dark Phoenix Saga doesn't happen until like the early to mid 80s. So when you pick up like the collected graphic novel form that only has like the 8 issues leading up to her death, that's only like a small sliver of this like insane storyline that has so much context that is now just lost. Which is part of the reason where if you read it as a standalone, it just doesn't work, or it works on a very surface level, but it's not very satisfying, because you don't have all the stew that came before it. Besides being the death of Jean Grey, the Dark Phoenix Saga is kind of important because it's the introduction of 2 major characters and 1 minor character of note. The Dark Phoenix Saga is the introduction of Dazzler, who appears in this movie. Something that I had forgotten about when I read it the first time. And it is also the introduction of Emma Frost and Kitty Pryde. They're literally introduced in like the first or second issue in the story. But just as a quick overview of the comic version, because it's so convoluted and has very little bearing on this movie. So the X-Men are on this mission, and they've lost some members because they've lost like Angel and Havoc and Banshee because they were injured, and they're like, we're going to take some R&R and we're going to help out Moira for a while. So the X-Men are down a few members, and Jean Grey as Phoenix is starting to feel a little weird. There's this guy, his name is his like superhero's name is Mastermind. They don't call him Mastermind though in the story, they go by his actual name. And he is part of the Hellfire Club, and he's like the number 2 to Sebastian Shaw, who we saw in First Class. He's Kevin Bacon's character. And Mastermind really wants to fuck with Jean Grey, and he's, by the name Mastermind, he's also a telepath. And he is able to infiltrate Jean Grey's mind, and he creates this reality where she believes that she is time traveling, like 200 years into the past. So part of the reason that Jean Grey is so messed up is because her mind is literally being altered, and she doesn't know where she is. Mm-hmm. So all that shit happens. A bunch of stuff with the Hellfire Club happens. The X-Men fight the Hellfire Club. They're captured. Jean Grey, eventually, the Phoenix is released within her and they escape. And the Phoenix then turns into the Dark Phoenix because Mastermind untaps some like evil shit in her mind, and now she's bad, and the X-Men are just like, stop, Jean, stop. And Charles is like, ah, and then Jean Grey's better for like 2 issues. And then she becomes Dark Phoenix again, and then she goes on this whole space tirade where she absorbs a sun, and within absorbing a sun, kills an alien planet. And then the X-Men are just like, Jean, you gotta calm down. She's like, you're right. And she's fine again. And then the X-Men are like, we're totally fine. And then suddenly they're teleported to an alien planet. And this alien tribunal is like, Jean Grey, you fucked up. You killed this entire species. And Jean Grey's like, I didn't mean to, though. And they're just like, but you did. And it's like 50 pages of the X-Men on this like alien planet, like waxing philosophic because it's Chris Claremont. And he treats the X-Men like Shakespeare, though it has the writing style of Days of Our Lives. And Jean Grey feels guilty, and then Dark Phoenix is released again, and the X-Men are just like, seriously, Jean, you gotta stop with this Dark Phoenix stuff. And she's like, I don't know what to do. I'm a split personality. And then there's some bullshit where Cyclops is talking to Jean, and it's like both Jean and Dark Phoenix talking. And Scott's like basically like, come to the light, Jean, and she's like, I will. And there's a hidden weapon on this planet because this entire weapon is like this entire planet is like a military fortress essentially, and Jean's psychosis is distracting the Dark Phoenix, and the Dark Phoenix is talking to Scott, and Jean holds her body still enough so this weapon can fire on her. And that's how Jean Grey dies. A gun pops out of the floor and shoots her. And that's the end of the story.
Oh my god. They should have adapted that.
It's not good. And it's really interesting what this movie chooses to pick out and what it very wisely excludes. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing about the Dark Phoenix Saga. The Dark Phoenix Saga isn't even one storyline. It's 2 different storylines. It's like a 5-issue arc, and then like the 2-issue aftermath that happens to have the single most important death of the entire series.
Yeah, see, I don't know much about the Dark Phoenix Saga at all. And what you explained to me, it sounds terrible.
It's... Okay, years from now, when people finally find these, or whatever, there will probably be some hardcore X-Men fan who was like, you didn't summarize it good at all, and I don't care, sir and or madam. For those who also don't care about their Dark Phoenix Saga, I don't recommend you read it unless you really want to go all the way back to Giant Size X-Men #1 and just read that entire fucking run. Because I'm sure it is way more emotionally satisfying if you have been with these characters for months and months and years worth of installments. Yeah. Which is part of the problem both times that they've tried to adapt this storyline into film.
Yeah.
Is because audiences have only really known this character for a total of screen time of 40-ish minutes?
Around, yeah.
With Apocalypse even less. I mean, like when they did it in Last Stand, it's just like, we don't really know Jean that well. Jean's not really in these movies much.
Yeah.
And the problem often with Jean... The problem with Jean Grey, for so long, she's part of the original X-Men lineup. It's Cyclops, it's Beast, it's Angel, it's Iceman, and it's Jean Grey. She was called Marvel Girl. That's how much they didn't try when they were developing her. And so much of those early, 60-ish issues that Stan Lee and Jack Kirby were involved, it's like the boys went out and did stuff, and Jean, made sandwiches, literally. And she would, sometimes help on missions. I'm not even joking. And there is so often where she is treated as, a fetishistic object. Because it's mostly male writers who don't really know how to write female characters unless they are like men. And the other problem with Jean Grey is that she's so powerful. I hate to say this, Jean Grey is basically a Mary Sue. She is sort of this, audience surrogate that doesn't have much personality of her own, that exists either to be romantically involved with a man or to save the day because she's so powerful.
Yeah.
I feel, and there it wouldn't be until, and then like her retire because there's clones of her and she comes back to life and maybe she's not back to life, and the X-Men mythology is so fucking gargled and filled with retcons, and
I bet that's most comic continuities though.
The X-Men more so because the X-Men have this. They sort of have this distinction, is that they are sort of a separate continuity within the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
The X-Men don't really interact with the rest of the Marvel Universe that much. They're basically in like their own little world. Which is kind of a nice thing, but also just makes things... It kind of makes it sort of unapproachable because there's just so much material to work with. There are like literally things where... Claremont will... Because the other thing about Claremont is that he's very wordy. I mentioned this in the Apocalypse episode, I think. Or maybe it was... It doesn't matter. He would later to go on to write novels as well, and he treats comic books like novels, which from someone who grew up reading comics very much in the modern era, is an adjustment because I'm used to the more cinematic style that came sort of in the mid to late 80s. But... So, there'll be these fucking, like... Within the panel there will be the drawing, and then there will be these bits of prose that, like you would see in a novel, that would either describe like the situation that's going on, even though we can literally see it, or what the characters are thinking. And there's a moment where Claremont describes Jean Grey as a woman of not only great beauty, but of strength and intelligence and of power. But he puts beauty first. That's kind of the issue with Jean Grey as a whole.
Yeah.
I mean, honest to God, Connor, from any of these movies, name one personality trait of Jean Grey's.
I would say Jean is smart.
Yep, that's the only one I can think of, too.
Jean is smart, and Jean is smart.
Jean is smart, and she is very powerful. How do we know she's very powerful? Everyone keeps telling us.
Yeah. Yeah, Jean is smart.
That's my Jean Grey Grant. She's never... And again, it's really frustrating because I want three-dimensional female characters.
Yeah.
I want three-dimensional characters in general. But in a world where for so long we have lacked really in-depth female representation, particularly in sort of genres and fields that have been considered to be male-dominated, I want three-dimensional female characters, and the X-Men, has a lot of them. And it's just really frustrating when one of the most important ones is probably the most two-dimensional character of the entire series.
Yeah.
And it's not her fault. It's just no one knows how to fucking write her.
No. I don't know. I mean, we'll talk about the MCU probably later. We'll probably talk about the MCU on the heels of our New Mutants discussion. Because obviously that's like the impending thing. I don't know. I'm interested to see how they handle Jean.
I will say, I think this movie is the closest we've come to a good, like, Jean Grey thing out of all of these films. Yeah. I think this movie is really Jean-dominated in a good way, and I think it comes from Simon Kinberg. A, grew up reading X-Men comics, and B, has been with this franchise for so long that he's just like, I'm really going to focus this movie on Jean. I think it's called Dark Phoenix solely for a reason.
Yeah.
I think it is a Jean movie that the X-Men happen to encompass around.
Yeah.
And I think she has a series of wants and desires in a way that we haven't really seen this character have before.
No. That's actually, it's one of my positives. Actually, a couple of positives were about Jean.
I think this movie actually does really right about Jean Grey.
Yeah.
In a way that very few things are. Oh, by the way, most people count the best adaptation of the Dark Phoenix Saga to be the 90s cartoon adaptation of the Dark Phoenix Saga, which is like 5 episodes long. Like, they pretty much do the entire thing. Take that as you will.
Do you want to move on to negatives? There's only 3 of those.
There's only 3 of those?
Yes. There's not much I feel about this movie.
Alright, fair enough.
Okay, so the first negative... this isn't a crack to Brian Darcy James, because I love him. The X-Phone is so stupid.
Here's the thing. I like, in theory, how goofy this is. That being said, it would have fit a lot better in Apocalypse than it did now. I'll agree with you that the X phone is dumb. I do like the idea that Charles has become so distracted with his own sense of self-importance. And that I like the shit they do with Charles in this movie a lot.
Yes.
That he's sort of become blind to his own arrogance and things like that. And I think the phone line to the president is a very clean way of doing that. I think it's really dumb that he is able to pick up a phone and say, I would like to speak to the president. I think it should be the other way around. Yes. The president has his phone that can go straight to Charles.
Yes. Well, the one time we do see him do that, we actually see him do it. They're like, we're disconnecting this line.
Which I don't think that...
They would not say that
line, and then it's disconnected. It would just be disconnected.
Yeah. I like that the intern answers the phone and is like, we're going to disconnect this line.
Okay, I'll give you that. The X phone is dumb.
And here's the thing. Obviously, I like that it's branded that it doesn't have a keypad. It just has the X. Yep. It's a little too much. I like the wheelchair.
It doesn't even have the presidential seal.
Yeah. I like that the X-Men love branding. I like his X phone. I like his wheelchair that has the light up blue X.
Both Charles and Eric, that's their true superpower.
Yeah,
They're masters of branding.
I also like that Magneto's a sentimentalist. He kept the Days of Future Past helmet. First class helmet.
It's the first. I like it too. I think it fits the style of this movie.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay, so other negative. The editing on Mystique's death is terrible. They try to keep it like a secret, like what happened to her. Not a secret, but you know what I mean. There's some suspense to it, but you know what happened.
You don't reveal. I don't.
How it's cut is so bad. It's dumb. That's a very big nitpick.
It works for me. Well, here's the thing. This needs to be a PG-13. You can't show her get fucking impaled.
That's true.
I do like the slow pan out, and they just reveal how nasty it is.
Yeah,
it's like a pretty cool... It's a pretty cool...
That's true. I guess I was thinking back in Logan times, where you could show a person get impaled.
Yeah. I think Mystique's death works for the most part.
It's just that one editing choice that threw me off, but I guess that's just because I was used to seeing it unedited in Logan.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I forgot how ratings worked. Okay, like I said earlier, the worst action scene, arguably in the X-Men franchise, the New York fight.
I disagree.
I think that fight is bad.
I think it's pretty good.
I don't know, man. I don't think any of the action is effective. The Scott mirror thing is so dumb.
Which Scott mirror?
Where he shoots the car mirror and it fucking like blasts back.
Here's the thing. Technically, they are sonic blasts.
Yes, that would knock the fucking mirror off.
Technically.
It would not reflect.
But I've always liked it better, the idea that it's just lasers.
Well, here's it can be just lasers. I'm fine with it being just lasers, but don't tell me they're concussive only when they need to be concussive.
Yeah, I'll here's the thing. I'll give you that. Here's the thing. I won't blame you that it bothers you. It doesn't bother me. I don't care.
In the MCU, if we just say they're lasers, not gonna bug me at all. I'll be like, sick. But don't show me they're concussive and they're not concussive.
Yeah.
Also, what was happening with Nightcrawler? Because that girl is a telepath. I get that.
Yeah.
And she's like controlling where. I like how she fakes Charles' voice in Nightcrawler's head to get him to come to her. That's cool. Yeah. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
The thing that bugs me is that how is she controlling where he's teleporting to after that?
I would have to... It's not something that I thought about while I was watching the movie.
Yeah.
So I would have to go back to confer.
See, that's the thing. The fight, a lot of it's not affected to me, and the stuff that's cool, it makes no sense.
I feel like...
Because we see Nightcrawler keeps teleporting place to place.
It's a fairly easy mulligan once the notion of a telepath is introduced. Once you're shit out of luck there. Like you're basically in their hands. So you could make that excuse. I would like to throw out the notion of we know the train stuff is reshoots.
Yes.
and pretty much like the last 20 minutes of the movie is all
there was a
separate
whole point
reshoots.
where they went to Congress at the end of the movie originally.
Do you think the New York stuff was also reshoots?
I don't think so, because I think actually it might have. I think Scott and Professor X being captured was a reshoot. Because what I gather from like what I read months ago about the Skrulls is they got away, everyone else was captured, and they went to Congress to talk about like how it's like the aliens are controlling Jean.
See, that's dumb and that's bad.
It is dumb and bad.
Everything I've read about the previous version of this movie, I think this movie was actually saved in reshoots.
Yeah,
I think this movie actually was improved.
I think the train scene is effective, it's just not as effective as I remember it being like in the theater.
At what point was it no longer Skrulls? Were they shooting with Skrull stuff and then they had to change it?
No, from what I got, they filmed the entire ending. They filmed the entire ending. I don't think Marvel and Fox communicated on the Skrulls before like they talked like did Captain Marvel. I think it was a thing where Marvel was like we technically own them as well. It's shared.
Because they cut a deal for Skrulls and it was pre-acquisition.
Yes.
Because Captain Marvel was announced and it was very quickly announced.
Yes.
Skrulls are in it. Mm-hmm. And Dark Phoenix came out after Captain Marvel, but was supposed to come out before Captain Marvel.
I think it was
at that point, both movies had been in development and / shooting.
Yes. I think it was a thing where they had Skrulls in Dark Phoenix. Captain Marvel was coming out. They were like, we can't also have Skrulls in our movie because they're going to do it better and people are going to give a shit for it. So let's change the ending.
Also, because here's the thing. On a certain level, I would understand why Simon Kinberg would want to use Skrulls. Because Fox has had the right for Skrulls forever.
Yeah.
Skrulls started out basically just as a Fantastic Four villain.
Yes.
And then eventually like rose to the status of like a big bad of like the entire Marvel universe. Mm-hmm. Skrulls are in the Dark Phoenix saga. But they're not the main bad guy. They're just both the Skrulls and the Kree are part of like that alien tribunal that's like deciding the fate of Jean Grey. So they're like a very tertiary part. It's not like they're a foe. I don't think the Skrulls are necessarily a good fit for the story that Simon Kinberg was trying to tell.
Yeah.
Especially like the Skrulls, especially because like the traditional Skrull within the Marvel Universe are sort of power hungry, which is why they're shapeshifters, because they want to conquer. But the reason that they want to conquer other planets, as described in the Captain Marvel movie, is because their original planet was destroyed.
Yes.
It's just they're sort of homeless and they've sort of lashed out against it. I don't think the Skrulls would care about the power of the Phoenix.
No.
At all. So I'm totally fine with Jessica Chastain being an amorphous. She's alien.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter what kind of species she's
the
shapeshift.
They look like the Signs aliens to me too, which is funny.
A little bit, yeah. But you could tell like when she's turning in, because like when the big tall alien captures Jessica Chastain and she's shaping back into Jessica Chastain, there's like a little bit of the ridges that the Skrulls have.
Yeah. Do you think the Skrulls were partly a way to, because this was pre-merger, this movie was being developed, do you think it was a thing to introduce Fantastic Four back into like the X-Men continuity kind of deal?
I don't know, because that's the reason they... Well, first off, the X-Men franchise so far like hasn't really touched the alien stuff.
Yeah.
There was actually a lot of space stuff in the X-Men comics back in the day. Like a good chunk of the Dark Phoenix saga takes place in space. Jean Grey became the Phoenix because she went up into space to begin with. Because the X-Men were on some sort of space mission. That's something that the movies have very wisely not touched on.
Yeah. I don't think it... Here's the thing. I'm obviously not an X-Men comics guy like you are at all.
Yeah.
I don't think I've actually ever read an X-Men comic, thinking about it. But it's a thing where it's like, I don't think aliens work in X-Men for me. At least in the very minimal experience I had with aliens in X-Men.
The modern X-Men stuff, for the most part, doesn't really touch it, which is interesting. because at this point the Marvel Comics universe has been like fairly well defined, where there's superhero stuff, there's X-Men stuff, there's cosmic stuff, and there's some stuff in between.
Yeah.
And like there was recently a fairly successful crossover. This was probably like 5-6 years ago with the X-Men and the Guardians of the Galaxy. So like every now and again the X-Men will go back to space, but for the most part they are a fairly not domestic. What's the thing confined to Earth? There's a word for that.
Planetary. Earthly? Is there anything just earthly?
No. There was a big smart word for it that I'm forgetting right now. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you. What were we talking about? Aliens?
We were talking about like the Skrulls and everything, and like the whole plan, like what was reshoots, what wasn't.
I'm totally fine with it not being Skrulls.
Yeah, I'm glad it's not Skrulls.
Everything I've read about the movie, the way this was before, is like I think the movie.
You're telling me you wouldn't like Charles appealing to Congress as the final part of the movie?
No. Okay. One honest to God pause of this movie. This movie fucking moves.
It does. It goes by really fast.
It is insanely efficient. Mm-hmm. And don't get me wrong, there are loose ends, and I think that's because was the development of this just really rushed?
I think so, yeah.
I feel like part of it is that Fox really pushed it in a direction that Kinberg did not originally plan.
No. So
I think part of it is now Kinberg had to adapt. He was never removed though. No. So like because this is so antithetical of what usually the scenario is, I think this is one of the few cases where like heavy studio involvement actually helped this movie.
Yeah. Ready for some positive, Stevie boy? There's a few of these.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
What do you
I like Cyclops' gun on the X-Jet. It makes sense in the context of the world, and I actually kind of dig it.
I'm glad you mentioned this. That opening mission, where they're trying to save the space shuttle, is pretty much the only time in this entire 10-movie franchise that we have seen the X-Men work as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really... Because, like, you could make an argument for... Because obviously there's the first X-Men where it's the 5 of them up on the Statue of Liberty.
Yeah.
But there's only 5 of them, and it's the first movie. X2, they're split up. There's, like, several members are killed, but, like, the end of Last Stand to a certain extent, but that battle is so big that everyone's just...
Yeah.
Everyone's teamed... Like, so often in these movies, everyone is teamed up with a baddie of equal power.
Yes.
And it's just several different individual fights cut together. This is, like, the only time that we've seen the X-Men, they're not even fighting a villain. They are working as a team to accomplish a goal and to save people. It's just insane that we took 10 movies to get to a point where our superhero team is working as a superhero team to save people. That's all I have to say.
Yes. I also,
now, please
in relation to that, I love that the scene where Nightcrawler and Quicksilver are working together to save the astronauts.
Yeah.
Like that little bit where she's just like in the process of teleporting, Quicksilver like goes and grabs them all.
Yeah.
Okay, this isn't a positive. It's a gripe about the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry to this singular man's family. They should have left the captain up there.
You know, Charles, man, no one gets left behind.
Yes.
Well, here's the thing. I think the movie would probably agree with... Well, no, the movie wouldn't agree with you. The movie celebrates it as... Because the movie is saying, yes, all life has value.
Yes.
And the heroic thing to do is to try to save everyone. Mm-hmm. But Raven is also correct of saying, we got most of everyone, and Charles, your ego is super huge right now. I don't want to risk losing anyone.
No, Raven is enormously right.
And she is correct, because now Jean is all sorts of fucked up.
No, Raven's
yes, everyone's life is saved. I feel like it's one of those situations where, yes, Charles, in the short term, we saved everyone on that ship. But in the long term, how is this going to affect the potential lives of everyone when Jean is now Dark Phoenix, and if Jean wasn't a self-righteous person and won out in the end, like, the Dark Phoenix could have killed all of Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those moral quandaries, like, would you kill baby Hitler?
Yeah.
But
well, it's not even to the extent of, like, the whole, like, Dark Phoenix thing. like Raven said, they almost were saying, like, our condolences. Because it's a good thing. You need to, all life matters. You need to save that man. I'm not disagreeing with that. But when you're putting actively the entire team and the people you've already saved in danger, at that one point you have to measure, like, the good of the all versus the good of one.
Yeah. Charles is only right because it worked out.
Yes. No. Okay, and then after that, I have Dazzler as one of my positives.
It's fine.
I like Halston Sage. I like her as Dazzler.
Okay.
Good for her.
I had a question about this. Is Halston Sage a singer?
No, I don't think so. I think she's just
she's
an
being dubbed.
I couldn't tell. I don't know. I don't know her voice as a singer, but
because that looks like it was dubbed, or she was lip syncing on set. The thing is, again, with the 1992 thing, is that Dazzler was introduced in like 1981, when disco was on like, excuse me, its death's door. Do you know much about the history of Dazzler?
No.
God, that's a tangent. Essentially, Dazzler was created by Marvel. This is a very short version. Dazzler was created by Marvel to be a multimedia character that would be introduced in the comics with the intention that she would get her own movie, starring Bo Derek.
Sick.
Yeah. I think Sci-Fi, the cable channel, they have a YouTube channel. I think they have like a whole 30-minute video on the creation of Dazzler where they interview a lot of people involved, like writers and artists and stuff. I highly recommend it. It's a fascinating little story. But again, so Dazzler was created in like the early 80s on like the tail end of disco. Like that's part of the reason Dazzler flopped so hard is because she was like representing a fad that had already died.
Yeah.
So are we supposed to believe that in 1992, highly successful recording artist Dazzler is still wearing the outfit that she was wearing like 12 years prior? Because it's extremely comic accurate, but it's like not representative of the 90s at all.
Because I'm trying to understand, like, when I first thought, I was like, oh, Dazzler's, like, a student there now? But I guess she's not. Did they just, like, get this, like, mutant, like, performing artist just, like, come to their, like, woods party?
I had, in the, like, 2 minutes that Dazzler is on screen, I had built up an terribly sad headcanon where she was a one-hit wonder, and then she was, like, lost, and then she got sober, and she recognized that there was a safe haven for mutants, and that is fucking the school for gifted youngsters, and maybe she's the music teacher. I don't know. Whatever it is.
See,
it's a tragic story.
When you said that, all I could see was Stars Born with Dazzler.
Yes. That's basically what I envisioned.
See, talking about multimedia projects with Dazzler.
She's off the deep end.
Dude,
watch as she dives in.
MCU. Get some balls. Stars Born with Dazzler. No excuse.
Oh my god.
Hey, Disney Plus miniseries Dazzler. I'm all for it.
Disney Plus HBO Max crossover.
Yeah.
Co-production.
See, what I saw with what I thought with Dazzler, like originally I was like, oh, she's a student there because Halston Sage, I think she's in her 20s, but she looks like she could be like 17 or 18. But they have a good point. With obviously we know Dazzler exists from Apocalypse already.
Well, a deleted scene of Apocalypse.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
It's not in the actual movie.
No, because maybe they got connections. Maybe like Charles pulled some strings and got Dazzler at this woods party.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. Here's the thing. It's an Easter egg that only people like us get.
Yes, I like Dazzler.
Whatever freaks that care about these enough to know, like when I was in the theater, I'm like, that's Dazzler, and my dad's like, who?
I was the nerd who was like, "That's Halston
I like
Sage."
her. I feel like it's a good representation of her her powers. I like the astral projection that she.
Yeah, it is cool.
Like she's her own lighting system and everything. Yeah, it made me smile in the theater. It's fine. She's mostly in the background. Also, that song doesn't sound like anything that would come out of like. I have a hard time. It's like, so Dazzler, like, what kind of pop star is she? Like, in my head, like, for that universe, she would basically be Madonna, but also, like, disco-y. Like, where does she fit? What is this song that she's singing?
I picture her kind of like this, like, very, because of the nature of her powers, it's very, like, cool, showy, like, rock star.
Yeah.
That's why in my head, I was like, Gaga would be a good Dazzler.
Yeah. But it's also just, like, is this like, her big hit?
Yeah.
Or is this like a new thing that she's come up with? Is this like her like sort of like Annie Lennox riff? Like
We've
what is
spent
this
more
song?
time on Dazzler than the movie has at this point.
I want to know.
I do too. I don't know, man. We'll never know.
The introduction of this is like the hyper nerdy thing I love. Like the introduction of Dazzler raises so many more questions than it answers.
Yeah. No, in the boardroom, they're just like, they'll like that we have Dazzler here. Let's put her there.
This was not a boardroom discussion. This was Simon Kinberg. Like, the fans have been asking for this for a while. We try to put her in the last one. Can we just like... Who is this Halston Sage who has no lines in this movie?
She is a Nick star. She was on that show Super Ninjas.
Okay.
She also is apparently friends with Cara Delevingne.
And you were excited to see her why?
I recognize Halston Sage. I was like, oh, that's Halston Sage.
Did you watch Super Ninjas?
I am embarrassed to say, yes, Steve, I did. I did watch Super Ninjas.
Is that the show that Alex Winter worked on a lot?
Maybe. It has Ryan Porter in it. He's a Beast Boy currently in Titans.
Because Alex Winter does a lot of television directing.
I also recognized her from Paper Towns, too.
Who is she in Paper Towns?
She's, oh my gosh, I just looked. Lacey.
Who is that?
She's the blonde girl that,
is not Cara Delevingne?
Yes.
Is she like the rich blonde girl?
Yes, she's the beer hand guy's blonde girl.
Okay. That movie's not that good.
She's also in The Orville.
Oh, good for her. Have you ever watched The Orville?
I have not. It did nothing for me, those trailers.
Well, here's the thing. I'm more of a Star Trek person than you. It's a pretty interesting, surprisingly solid Star Trek riff.
Okay.
If you're not really a Star Trek person, that I only watched like a good chunk of the first season. It just has a weird tone issue where it doesn't decide if it wants to be a parody of Star Trek or if it just wants to be a slightly comedic version of Star Trek.
Okay.
And I was correct. Alex Winter directed 5 episodes of Super Ninjas.
Yeah. So.
Okay, we spent too much time on fucking Dazzler. What's
and
next?
Super Ninjas. Next, Scott and Jean's relationship. I actually like them a lot together in this movie.
I have complicated feelings. I will mostly agree with you. I stand by that Ty Sheridan is a black hole of charisma. I think there are little moments where they are kind of cute.
Mm-hmm.
I think anytime Scott is just like, but Jean, I don't care.
You didn't like his come back to me?
It kind of works. Here's the thing. Like, the emotional stuff in this movie, I think, actually works pretty well. I think Kinberg has a very keen understanding of the psychology of these characters. And I like that because this material, this art that they're working with particularly, is very soap opera-y. And I like that Kinberg is not shying away from the melodrama of it.
Yeah.
That being said, it's just not always the most appealing thing to be watching.
Yeah. It works for me as a Riverdale boy. That kind of like light melodrama stuff works for me.
Ty Sheridan is way better in this movie than he is in Apocalypse.
Yes. He was
That's not saying much.
Yeah. He was the person I mentioned as the person I usually don't like in these movies. I actually kind of dug this time around. Was Ty Sheridan as Cyclops.
Cyclops was not offensive to me in this movie.
Yeah.
I'm just biased. I just don't like Cyclops. Yeah. I really don't.
I think he's good in this movie.
He's fine. He's totally fine. Okay, so since we're talking about this, do we just want to go into Sophie Turner?
I mean, I have no real opinions on Sophie Turner. I think she's good in
You
this
have
movie.
no real input.
I think she's good.
I think she's really kind of...
I think she's good.
I think she's really good.
Yeah.
I think... this is a tough character to play, and especially because like she's... Because I was too rough on her in Apocalypse when Apocalypse came out. I feel like I was fairly even-handed on her in our discussion of Apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
I think the leap in quality between her performance in Apocalypse to now is insane. It is night and day. I think she has better material to work with. This is a Jean-focused movie for the most part. I think she's way more comfortable in the role. I feel like my guess is that she's just more comfortable in the direction of Simon Kinberg than she was Bryan Singer. Who can blame her?
Yeah.
I think she has a better hang on the accent. I feel like there is this weight that is like there's just something, she's so closed off in Apocalypse. And I feel like there's that scene where after she's hit by the radiation beams and she comes down, and Scott's like, "Are you feeling okay?" And she's just like, I forget the exact line, and it's not even that great of a line. She's like, "I just feel alive." And like, that line is not good, but I believe it because I genuinely think she believes it.
Because the thing, Sophie Turner is a very good actress. She's an exceptional actress, as proven by Game of Thrones. She's very good.
I mentioned I haven't seen any episodes where she's in like a large portion of it.
I never had an issue with her in Apocalypse like you did. So the jump, even if it's noticeable, I'm used to like Sophie Turner in Game of Thrones good. So she's just like good in these two movies. Like, it's like, this is lesser Sophie Turner, but she's still like Sophie Turner, and I think she's good.
Yeah.
That's my thing. So I didn't have that big jump in quality because I've always just thought she was fine in the X-Men's.
I think it's a big jump in quality between the last one and this one. I feel like this movie asks a lot of her, and she is up for the challenge. Especially because there's so many fucking scenes where Jean just goes like...
Yes.
I feel like there are lines at the end where it's... Jessica Chastain's like, "Your emotions is what makes you weak." And she's like, "No, it's my emotions that make me strong." She actually sells that. Here's the thing. Yeah. It's a kind of a corny line, but it is the kind of corny was like, "Ooh, I got a little goosebumps."
Yeah. That and I have to protect my family worked for me.
Yeah. Also, I really like, because the blocking in this movie is interesting, because I mean, I feel like this is Simon Kinberg's first, like, he's directing a whole movie, he's getting credit, he did, like, reshoots on a bunch of stuff before, he would do second unit stuff on a lot of stuff, but this is the first time that he's making a movie. And I feel like I want to applaud him, and probably his second unit and his production team in general, because I feel like for the most part the action scenes are always coherent. Like, you always know when everything's happening, and it's easy to follow, and they're fairly inventive at times, but they're not, like, exceptional. It's a pretty decent first time at bat. He got like a double on the action scenes. These baseball metaphors are flying
right over my head.
Yeah,
I can see it already. Doubled 2 bases. Good job.
Yeah. No, you're correct.
Oh, sick.
Got it. So I feel like that is something that will improve the more chances that he gets to direct, and he has something in the pipeline coming up. Which we'll probably talk about a little bit at the end of this.
305, the spy movie with Chastain?
Whatever the spy movie is.
Yeah.
I think it says a lot, because Chastain and the other actresses involved with it, like, developed it. And I think it speaks greatly that Chastain was like, "Here's my baby, I trust it with you."
Yeah.
And I find it interesting, especially because the whole thing about that movie being developed is that it's like female financed, female sort of produced and led, that if they were going to trust a man, he's the man they trust. I find that to be very interesting. Because I don't think he wrote the script for that at all.
No, I don't think so.
Which is interesting, because he's mainly a screenwriter.
Yeah.
That's the thing, because, like, have you watched the bonus features on these for this at all?
No, I'm bad with bonus features usually.
It's really interesting, because the actors talk a lot about Simon Kinberg. It was like, we are really happy that Simon's finally getting the chance to direct. And like I mentioned, either in Apocalypse or in Logan, I actually believe them. And they'll actually show a lot of clips of him on set, and you can hear the direction that he's giving, which bonus material and behind-the-scenes stuff doesn't always do. They'll do it, sporadic clips here and there, but they'll like go for like 2-minute long clips where you can hear every bit of direction that he's giving the actors. Mm-hmm. And it's like very comprehensive stuff. Like, Simon Kinberg, like, I don't know, I feel like the rest of, I mean, you can make all sorts of complaints about the movies he wrote, and you can make all sorts of complaints about this movie if you want, but I generally think like he's a fairly thoughtful and inventive guy, and I'm very interested to see where his career goes from this point. Mm-hmm. Especially because, like, basically his entire career has been at Fox.
Yeah. Now
that Fox has mostly dissolved and he doesn't really have a homestead anymore, I'd be really interested to see where he goes from here.
Yeah. Do you think there's a realm where he becomes not like the new like McFeely for Marvel, but it's a guy that kind of contributes to other big scripts?
I mean, that's basically what he was
At Fox, yeah.
Fox, because outside of the X, I mean, Mr. and Mrs. Smith was the spec script that was like huge, which is pretty much what got him the consistent X-Men and Fantastic Four gig. But he's been involved with a bunch of stuff outside of the X-Men realm, mainly in Fox.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd be really interested to see where he goes from here. How did we get to Simon Kinberg? We were
talking about Scott and Jean.
Yeah.
Dark Phoenix, yeah. My next note is not note, but positive is Hank and Charles in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I think Nicholas Holt's outstanding in that scene.
Yeah. Especially because he's so sidelined in Apocalypse. Again, this movie is very melodramatic.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like one of the things that's either going to work with you or it's not is just if you're willing to accept that tone.
Yeah.
And I think both of us are willing to accept it to a certain extent, and I think that scene works really well.
I think it's just a really like good scene, and it makes a lot of emotional sense. I mean, Hank loving Mystique out of the blue is kind of here's the thing. It's not out of the blue because they had their relationship in First Class.
Yeah.
But we don't get any hint of feelings between them in Apocalypse or Days of Future Past.
Utterly disagree.
You don't think so?
Well, here's the thing. They don't really interact in Days of Future Past.
They have one scene together in Apocalypse, I'm pretty sure.
They have a couple scenes in Apocalypse. Because when Mystique brings Kurt into this school, the first person she sees is Hank.
Yes.
And he says, "You're here." Like, oh my God. And you could tell that he's taken aback. My implication is just like all these feelings that he probably like pushed way down had all suddenly come back. And again, they give Nicholas Hoult nothing to do in Apocalypse, really. So that's probably why you as an audience member, that's not really in the forefront of your brain. And in this movie, they're working professionals, and Hank is just like, Mystique, my longtime friend and colleague, and I'm not going to acknowledge any emotional or sexual attraction I have.
That's true. I guess he did have a whole decade since we last saw him to fall in love with Mystique. That's true.
Yeah.
It's a good point.
And I think her death could it's just one of those things where it's like, is it corny? Yeah. Is it kind of cliched? Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're willing to go with it, I think it works. Yeah. It's there.
No, I think Nick Hoult in that scene is great. And Charles' response that you're going to lay into me 5 minutes after I bury her. It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
I remember in the trailer they just show him like throwing the bottles off the table.
No.
Good scene. I like how he's the only one without an umbrella at the funeral.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's just like, okay, it's the stereotypical, it's a funeral, it's raining. Charles is giving like this pontificate, and she lives through me, and she lives through you, and she lives through this school, etc., etc., etc. And like you could, like someone could see the fact that Beast, he's all blue in that scene, and B, the fact that he chooses not to be an umbrella and he's brooding in the rain as like dumb. Or you could just kind of accept it and realize, like, that's what the movie's going for, and it just kind of works.
He's really sad.
Yeah.
I took it him being blue as kind of like a tribute to Mystique.
Because he's in his true form.
Yeah. Which I like. It's not a great effect. It looks kind of wonky. But I do like the scene where you see, like, Hank turn into Beast.
Yeah.
I think it's really solid.
Yeah.
And then Michael Fassbender, just in general. He's great in this movie.
He's okay in this movie.
I think he's really fucking good in this one.
No, I feel he's a little tired. Part of that's the character.
Yeah.
I don't think the Magneto dialogue is as good.
I think the scene with him and Jean, that's when I wrote that note.
That scene with him and Jean is incredible.
Yeah.
Any scene where he's talking to a military person, which is most of them.
Yeah.
Because there's the scene on the... I feel like... Well, here's the thing. Michael Fassbender is an amazing presence. And his presence carries a lot of authority with it. Mm-hmm. And I think it's fine. This is not Magneto's movie at all. And that's totally fine because we've gotten a lot of Magneto-heavy story stuff. Mm-hmm. in the past. I don't need this to be Magneto's movie. I love his compound. I love that Magneto has become his own version of what Charles has done, basically.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting to contrast like what essentially what Charles has done and sort of Magneto's version of it would be. No, I think Michael Fassbender's good. I just there's weird dialogue things, particularly in the train scene, where it's just like,
yeah,
would you do this? Would you say that? Would you say it like that, Eric?
Yeah. Something.
I think it's functional. I think it's fine.
I like that scene especially. I really like.
The scene that you're talking about was like, whose blood is that? And he keeps pointing it. Like, that is an impeccably written scene. And both of them are really going at it with all their might. And it's really sort of impressive.
Something people thought was really goofy in the movie that I thought was actually really cool and emotionally effective for me was Jean forcing Charles to walk.
I like it.
I think it's ridiculously cool.
I like all that stuff in the house where she's talking to Charles and she's talking to Scott. I like all that stuff.
It's really cool. That's like Magneto in the train scene. I think that's the coolest Magneto action we've seen probably in the entire franchise.
Not in the entire franchise.
I think
the bar fight in First Class.
The bar fight, yeah. But here's the thing.
But
Usually Magneto when he fights is him like throwing big chunks of metal, like using guns and stuff. I like that he's like actually ripping off shards and impaling people, like nailing them to walls. That's ridiculously cool.
I think it helps that he is completely surrounded by metal.
Yeah.
So once he has the collar off, it's free reign. I like there's the only real moments that stand out to me is when he gets the shard through the guy's hand and then he uses it and impales him. That's cool. Obviously, when he crushes the entire car and chucks it. There's a weird continuity though, which is why I think a lot of the train stuff is done in reshoots. He crushes a car and chucks it. Every car that's behind it should be thrown off the train. And it's not.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Magneto never leaves that car.
No, he doesn't.
Because Jean's in one car, the car immediately behind it is all the other mutants. And I don't think Magneto ever leaves that car. There's a point where the alien, I hate to see it, but the alien that disguises the black guy that's the government agent.
Yeah.
That's the car that he crushes and it chucks it behind it. Every other car behind that should be gone, and then we see more stuff with the rest of the car. So unless they're implying Magneto like suddenly teleported to the back of the train and he chucked the last car and then traversed across the entire fucking train to get back to his spot.
Well, how far back does the storm fling the like aliens? Because do they go through a few cars or is it just one?
I don't remember. Like, there's so much going on that
he
scene
might
that I
have
have a hard
crushed
time
like
pinning
the
that
last car and through it. But I guess no, we see it from his like view at the.
We see it from
car.
his perspective. It's the car right behind them.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. Even if it was a clean. So here's 3.
Yeah.
Magneto here, rest of the train here, the car that he crushes. Even if he crushed it and chucked it and it went over all the other cars, they would still no longer be connected to the train.
Yeah.
Which means slowly they would lose their momentum. But that train just keeps on chucking.
Yeah. No, I didn't even notice that.
So it's a weird continuity thing. I don't know if that was affected by reshoots or they just weren't thinking about it.
Probably weren't just thinking about it. And then my next positive. Oh, I think the Phoenix effects actually look pretty cool.
That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, it's spacey plasma stuff. It's stuff we've seen before, but I think it works. I like it when they show she's a bird.
I know. Okay,
I like that.
The bird is dumb, but I like the bird.
I like the bird. When they show it in Apocalypse, I'm like, there's the bird.
There's the bird.
I like it more than just shapeless plasma.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Like, I was like, I saw it, I was like, I don't love the bird, but I'm glad it's a shape.
I think this movie looks good.
It does look good. Especially
because Bryan Singer, talented visual storyteller as he may be, his movies always look like very, like there's like a lot of phosphorus and stuff.
Yeah.
Like they're very clean and like action figure-y. Mm-hmm. And this movie's like, it's very warm. There's a lot of earth tones. And blues pop a lot because there's so many earth tones. And I don't know. I like the way this movie looks.
I can get that. Okay, is there anything else you want to say about The Dark Phoenix? That's my positives.
The movie as a whole?
Yeah, because is there anything else you want to say? Like finishing up, going to rankings?
I think the emotional stuff in this movie surprisingly works really well. Again, I feel like part of it's source material. I think part of it's just the troubled production. I feel like there's definitely an argument to be that this movie's kind of half-baked. But I think the stuff that works really well, and I do think it improves on rewatches, especially if you're willing to give the film its grievances and the sort of logic holes and things like that. I feel like it doesn't help because the film is so dour. Like, it's not an easy movie to, like, really get in because it's just so emotionally heavy. I feel like it's really embracing the sort of soap opera type storytelling that the source material is, and I feel like that's a big turnoff for a lot of people. But if you're willing to get behind it, I think it works more than it doesn't. I don't know, I feel like it's a weird entry in the franchise, but I think it's mostly a good one, and I feel like it was sort of unfairly maligned, and it just got and unfortunately the entire legacy of this movie got entrapped in stuff that was completely out of its control.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I feel like people should give this one another fair shake. I feel like we've kind of been hard on this movie, and...
Well, it's not even, like, being hard on the movie. It's, like, because what we're saying is it's a good movie, but there's obviously a lot wrong with a good movie still. You know what I mean? It's not perfect by any means. It's not like it's a, like, I mean, obviously, like, one that's going to be both high on both of our lists is First Class. It's not like First Class.
Yeah.
Or Logan, where it's, like, solid throughout. There's not much to talk about. There's a lot of messy stuff in this movie. And obviously, since there's a lot of messy stuff, that's the stuff we talk about and focus on. But it's still
part
good.
of it, I think part of it is just, like, we have a lot of affection for this franchise.
Yeah.
So, things that other people might have problems with or just inherently doesn't work for them, we're willing to accept because it's an X-Men movie. And maybe that thing that kind of rubs one person the wrong way is part of the reason we like it.
Yeah. No, this movie's not trash like people said it was.
No, it's absolutely
It's ridiculous.
Not. It's completely unfair to the movie. I feel like the legacy that Apocalypse has should be the legacy that this movie has. Where people are just like, it's not that great, and it's kind of messy. I feel like that's kind of what this movie deserves. I mean, that's sort of chump change.
Yeah.
But it's, like, one of the worst blockbusters of its decade? No, absolutely not.
No.
I feel like, also the problem is when people hear reshoots or troubled production, they automatically think, bad movie.
Yeah.
And there's reason for that. I mean, there's a history of that happening, but that's not always the case. I feel like, I mean, yeah, it was a troubled production, and it was an expensive fucking movie to make. That's part of the problem. Like, this movie was really expensive to make, but it doesn't look it.
No.
Part of it is just the use of extras can really make or break your world. And the way you cover scenes that have a lot of extras. This movie feels empty and sparse. Even in scenes that are supposed to be crowded, like the New York fight.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, everyone's like, it's not populated.
There's no one in New York City at this fight.
Yeah. Whereas in the Avengers, like, they cover civilians really well.
Mm-hmm.
But even, like, the crowd scene where they land on the tarmac, and it's like everyone's cheering like X-Men, it looks like there's like fucking 30 people there.
Yeah.
Same thing with the party, same thing where Charles is at that presidential event.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, and part of that, I don't know if it was a budgetary thing, I don't know if it was a scheduling thing, where they didn't want to deal with a lot of people because they had to get a lot done in a certain day. I don't know if it's just Kim Berg's a first-time director and he doesn't really know how to cover scenes that have a lot of extras. But that's part of, so, like, I don't know, because the amount of people that are within your frame affects the mise-en-scène. It creates a mood and an environment. And that's why this movie kind of has a sort of a sterile feeling to it.
Yeah. Which
often that's sterility, or what's the... I don't know, the nature of being sterile.
Sterility, I think it is, yeah.
Yeah. Can sort of make it feel cheap when it's not. It was very expensive. I don't know. I think it's just sort of this weird modge podge of a movie, and it's just, I feel like, I mentioned my qualms with the source material. I feel like this is about as successful an adaptation as you can make.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't want to say it's a hidden masterpiece or anything, but I think there's some good stuff in here. Yeah. I think it's unfairly maligned. I think it's worth watching. Especially, I mean, if you made it this far, you might as well.
Yeah. If you
Why
watched
not?
the
You might
other
love
like
it, you might
9
hate
in the
it.
franchise, might as well finish it.
Yeah. I don't know. There was part of me watching it, as sad as I am that Fox will no longer have X-Men. Especially because we've reached a point where they were willing to experiment with things like Deadpool and Logan.
Yeah.
Which I elaborated on further. I am kind of glad that we're done with this mainline series of X-Men.
Yeah.
I feel like it ran its course. I feel like this is a more satisfying conclusion than Apocalypse. But Apocalypse and this back-to-back really emphasized, like, they're out of steam and they're out of gas. And now is a good time to get a different version of the X-Men.
Yeah.
So
I prefer it was a New Mutants direction as opposed to an MCU direction. But what it ended up being.
Weirdly, as much as I despise the Disney acquisition of Fox, and I do, and unfortunately the X-Men is a big part of why they bought the studio whole cloth, instead of just seeing if they can find, I don't know, we're not going to get into that because neither of us are economists.
No.
But a major studio buying out another major studio, not buying out a little indie thing, other major player.
One of the major five.
One of the major 6 that is now a major 5.
Oh, yeah.
That's not good.
No.
1,000 people's lost their job, and it's less... The X-Men are just an example of the whole major problem, is that now there's less individual voices at play and competition, and et cetera, et cetera. It's free speech, commerce.
Yeah. Well, not even that. Like, we're both film students. So obviously we want to work in this industry in the future, and we lost a lot of opportunity by this acquisition in itself. There's one less place to hire us.
Not even that. Not even just opportunity for us, but opportunity for other people, but also opportunity for audiences, because where you get your media and who produces your media is a big deal. And when the amount of people that actually are producing your media gets smaller and smaller and smaller, and already it's way too small to begin with, that can have dangerous implications.
Yeah.
On a political level, on a sociological level, on all sorts of stuff. And the X-Men franchise being consumed is just an example of that.
Yes.
And it's not the most important one.
It's a grain of sand in a desert of bad stuff associated with this merger.
Yeah. It's a pretty big grain. It's a
decent grain. It's a clump of sand.
I would say it's a mound of sand. It's a fairly substantial mound of sand in a very expansive desert.
No, I remember when this all went down, I had this, one of the few times I've ever done a Twitter thread where I was talking about how much I was not a fan of this acquisition. And I was like, believe me, dudes, I am beyond excited I can see, Deadpool and Spider-Man together now. But, at what cost? Thousands of jobs, so many ruined opportunities, people, and it's here's the thing, believe me, do I want to see Wolverine and Black Panther fight some dudes? Yeah, sounds great. But it's I mean, this is just me. I already feel like the MCU is too crowded. I already don't like that Spider-Man's in the MCU. Yeah.
And again, there's bigger issues than the petty, what superheroes are going to play with what other superheroes. There's bigger things at play. But personally, I mean, I like Homecoming, but I really don't like what they've done with Peter so far in the MCU.
Yeah, because Peter is Peter is the baby of the MCU. He does not exist without this, that world around him.
Whereas, people have their issues with the Amazing Spider-Man movies, but I am much more interested in what the Amazing Spider-Man movies are compared to the MCU than actually seeing Spider-Man within the MCU. Don't get me wrong, Tom Holland's great. I love Tom Holland as Spider-Man.
Yeah.
It's just the movies that he happens to be in, I don't
and we disagree
think
on
are
Far
as
From Home,
interesting.
But,
Yeah, I don't like that movie.
Yeah.
I think it's a nothing burger of a movie.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was going to say my ending thoughts, but I pretty much disagree with you. I think it's unfairly maligned. I think it's a good movie. I don't think it's great by any sense of the means, but it's not nearly as bad as people say it is. There's good stuff in it. There's really cool stuff in it. There's performances I look back on, especially Fassbender and that moment from Holt, where I'm very impressed. And yeah, I am bummed this franchise, with the exception of New Mutants, is over.
I just realized something because we're starting to wrap up, but there's a pretty major person that we have not talked about at all.
Who?
It's Jessica Chastain.
Oh, here's the thing. No tea to my queen Jessica Chastain. I love her with all my heart. I don't give two farts about her in this movie.
I feel like it's a very functional villain. I feel like part of it is it seems like her role changed halfway through production, so that's a problem. I feel like when she's an alien, she doesn't always know what to do. She's a little robotic. I don't blame her for that. I feel like that's a Kinberg direction thing.
You know what's funny though, Steve?
What?
Is every one of these we've talked about the villain, like we say them until the end. We didn't know it was Xavier and Logan. But we always forget like one character to talk about until the last like 5 minutes.
Well, I was waiting for Logan. I was saving Patrick Stewart for the positives, and you went through all your positives. I'm like, you forgot Patrick Stewart, who's like arguably the best part of the movie.
I know. Here's the thing. You know me. There's always something I'm like, it wasn't as good as people say it is. Every time like someone talks like the best thing in the movie, I think he's good in the movie. I don't think he's as nearly as good as Daphne Keane or Boyd Holbrook.
This is no longer Logan.
It's not.
I disagree.
But
anyway, Jessica Chastain.
I'm not. Here's the thing. I to you that robotic thing, except for the one time she's Margaret, I thought she was robotic.
I want to talk about that.
Time.
I want to talk about that. When I saw this in the theater, and it's that fairly anomalous dinner party scene, you just needed to introduce this alien's human form. That moment where she's talking about the dog, she's like, I'm just going to go check on it. I'm just going to check on it. It's such a beautiful moment of humanity, and such like a very specific choice of how she said that line. And I'm like, wow, she is one of the most exceptional actresses we have working today. And she's just going to play a superpowered alien this entire movie.
Yeah, no, she's great as Margaret.
Yeah.
They're like 30 seconds, she's Margaret. I'm like, cool, I love her.
And I'm just like, it's a real shame that we only get this performance. Because, like, that little 30-minute scene is a beautiful little performance. A little bit, like, she bottled this beautiful little piece of humanity that we're not, and I knew it in the theater, I'm like, we're not going to get that performance for the rest of the movie. I will say, the thing about Jessica Chastain, A, she is visually striking. And I'm not me just saying, hey, she's hot, though. Like, her features are very visually striking. So there is something, like, kind of alien about her. She has very big eyes. Like I said, she has a very chiseled chin. I feel like bleaching her hair was very smart. That was probably a wig, but whatever. The white hair, which we're not used to her having at all, her being a natural redhead, etc., etc. And just her overall, as a caliber as an actress, she is like when she's on screen, you want to look at her. Yeah. So she has a sort of sense of authority as a villain. That being said, it's just one of the things I complimented the movie earlier is that it just moves. It does not waste a lot of time. But at the same time, because of that, we don't get a lot of like sense of like background for the aliens. Besides her crazy PowerPoint presentation, which I enjoyed a lot, where she's like manifesting like galaxies and stuff. I thought it looked cool. You know, I mean, it's fairly shorthand, like, alien, want to take over, bad.
Yeah. Her name is
They
Bucks.
want power.
She's an alien.
They can't have power.
Planet.
Bad.
Yeah.
I think the scene... And the one moment in the climax, because the climax, like I mentioned earlier, it's kind of clunky in terms of blocking. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just her fighting some of the aliens, though it looks like that manifestation of her power. It looks really cool. Mm-hmm. And then it's her holding on to Jessica Chastain. The thing I was making fun of earlier, like there's just a lot of... The problem when you have characters this quote-unquote super powerful, but there's also not always like a super great visual representation of their powers. It's just them like going like this a lot. Mm-hmm. Like the scene where her and Magneto just have to compete of who gets the helicopter.
Is just like this.
And their performance is limited to who can do this better. Mm-hmm. But the one scene where she's holding on to Jessica Chastain, and you can see the who's getting the energy like shifting between the two, and it's that rotating shot where you can see Jessica Chastain, and this is more it's both compliment to Chastain's performance and Kinberg's choice as a director, where she smiles, she's like, yes, powerful, and then you turn around to see the back of her head and you can't see her, and then when you see her face again, you could tell like, oh, something has gone terribly wrong. I feel like that's a very good visual representation of what would be a fairly lame scene otherwise.
Yeah. And I don't know. I was like, and also Jean like forcing her hand back on her neck.
Yeah. That's
is so good.
That's really cool. And it's just one of those... And these are two extremely talented young actresses, and their performance with each other is just limited to essentially a staring contest. And that's a challenge, and both of them were of the caliber that they were up to it, and they did it fairly successfully. Do I think Jessica Chastain deserves better than what she has in this movie?
Yes.
Yes. But do I think that she elevated the fairly limited material that she had yet? Also, yes.
Yeah.
I feel like this part in a lesser actor's hands, it wouldn't be as impactful as it is.
Yeah.
As limited as that impact already may be. I don't know. I think Jessica Chastain deserves better, but I'm glad she was here. End of thoughts.
Okay.
Any more things that we have to say to wrap up Dark Phoenix?
It is an okay movie. I think we'll talk about it more when we get to rankings.
Probably. I recommend it. If you like the X-Men franchise and you've made it this far, it does not deserve the
Yeah,
reputation.
honestly, watch the rest of the X-Men. Don't just stop
Yeah.
before Dark Phoenix. Don't be dumb.
Yeah. Especially if you watched Apocalypse.
Yeah,
Jesus.
don't be dumb. Okay, Steve.
So is that it, Connor?
I think that's it.
Have we finished?
Well, are we doing rankings on here, right, too?
We're going to do a wrap-up. I want to mention something, because as of right now, New Mutants is supposed to be released in August.
Yes.
That may change. I think there's a fairly good chance that we finally, at its 5th release date, will get New Mutants 3 years after it was supposed to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Just for context, it was supposed to come out our first semester freshman year, and is now coming out our first semester's senior year.
Second
Right?
semester freshman year. It's supposed to be April 13th was the original release date.
Of 2018?
2017.
So,
April 13th, 2017.
Connor, that was our senior year of high school.
Oh, then it was 2018. My bad.
No, here's the thing. I think it was 2018, and I think that trailer we got was 2017.
No, we got that trailer. Oh, we got that trailer first semester of our freshman year of college.
Yes.
So I remember watching in the common room of my dorm at the time.
Yeah. So it was supposed to come out second semester of our freshman year. Instead, probably coming out first semester of our senior year.
Instead of 2018, it's coming out in 2020.
Yeah. So whenever New Mutants comes out, whether we're together or we have to do this again, we're going to cover it.
Yeah.
I want to make a suggestion that before New Mutants comes out, we also cover the Deadpools.
I'm up for that. I wrote on my letterbox list, I put, the Deadpools... Well, New Mutants will sure be added. The Deadpools will be added when I next rewatch them. Whenever that is.
Because New Mutants, though it is a Fox X-Men film...
It is not in this main continuity, yeah.
...is a separate thing. So if we're doing that separate thing, I think it's only fair that we do the Deadpools as well. That being said, I feel like it was wise for us to stick to these main 10 for this. Anything that had X-Men in the title... And Dark Phoenix.
Yes.
Again, there can be arguments whether or not it's an X-Men movie. In title, I mean.
Yeah.
There's no arguments in whether or not it's an actual
I get what
X-Men.
you
It's an
meant.
X-Men movie. Yeah. Logan as well. It doesn't fucking matter. You know what I mean.
Yeah, and they do too.
Yeah. But I think it's only fair for completionist's sake that we will eventually cover the Deadpools.
Yeah.
But this is our journey, and we're finally at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Connor, we did it. We're at the other end of the rainbow. What's a good X-Men analogy for a journey's end?
We are now the Phoenixes.
The Blackbird has landed on the tarmac of the Xavier School, etc.
We're playing chess. We're playing chess in Paris.
Yeah, we're playing chess in Paris.
Okay, so how do you want to do the ranking thing? Do you want to go, we each start at 10, go up? Like, you go, then I go? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So
let's start with you, though.
Okay, so my number 10, controversy right off the bat.
Yeah.
The Wolverine.
Yeah, I knew you were going to do it. You don't like the movie.
I don't.
There's nothing that I can say that to convince you otherwise.
It is
just
the
doesn't
only time I've watched one of these movies, and I felt bored and almost fell asleep.
There's nothing I can convince you otherwise.
No.
I'll accept that fate.
But like I said, there's none of these that I consider bad movies. That's just the one that grabbed me the least.
Yeah. No. I'll elaborate on the Wolverine further. All right. Do you want to know my number 10?
Yes.
I said it last week. It's confirmed here. It's X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yes.
This movie gets dogged on a lot. It's whatever. I don't care.
Yeah.
I do not care. Here's the thing. A vast majority... Do I hate X-Men Origins Wolverine? It's not worth hating.
Yeah.
It's just dumb. and it's whatever. And it's got a couple of cool moments, and then mostly really dumb stuff.
Yeah.
And I just find it mostly inoffensive, and I'll probably never watch it again.
Okay, ready, Steve, for my number 9?
Yeah.
It's timely, Dark Phoenix.
Wow, that low.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking it was going to be that low. I was surprised how much Dark Phoenix rose in the rankings for me.
Really?
Yeah, which we'll get to.
Which, it's funny enough, for these movies, there's no 3.5s. There is 6 3s and 4 4s.
It's really funny, because most of mine are 3.5s. I have, for mine, it's X-Men Origins Wolverine is 2.5. My number 9, which we'll get to, is a 3. And then literally spots 8 through 4 are 3.5s.
Yeah.
For me.
Okay. So what's your number 9, Steve?
My number 9, controversially, because just like a couple days ago it was higher, X-Men Apocalypse.
Okay. For some reason, my brain was thinking X2 and I was about to cry.
No.
Okay, X-Men Apocalypse, your number 9?
X-Men Apocalypse is my number 9.
That's not a bad choice.
On that rewatch, the stuff that I really liked in the theater didn't impress me as much, with the exception of the Magneto stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's kind of a mess. I think it lacks ethereal voice. Like I said, Bryan Singer, I think, was removed at a certain point, and they just didn't advertise it as much as other dramatic removals of directors have been advertised. It's whatever. It's a whatever little movie. And I think it has its moments, and I think it's pretty good for the most part. It's utterly watchable.
Yeah.
And I think there's some, like, really cool scenes, but, like, when I was comparing it to the rest, like, there are 2 movies in particular that I initially had it higher than.
Yeah.
Though I will say there are things in Apocalypse that I like a lot more than the things I really like in these 2 movies. The next 2 movies they have coming up are undeniably, like, better to a point where it's just, like, it's offensive for me to put Apocalypse above them. It, honest to God, is offensive for me to put Apocalypse above them. So it's just like, you're knocked down to number 9. Like we said before, we like all these movies to different extents. There's none of these movies that we hate. So it's totally fine. Apocalypse is what it is. Well, we talked about it for an hour.
Speaking of which, that's my number 8.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting.
Yeah. So no, everything you said, it went down a rewatch for me. It's my number 8. Even though it's in the 8th spot out of 10, it's not a bad movie at all.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is your number 8?
My number 8 and my number 7 are basically a tie. This one's really going to hurt your feelings. My number 8 is X2. X2 is really solid.
Mm-hmm.
I just have no strong feelings for it whatsoever.
There's
very little for X2 that, like, really... And I think X2 is a movie that people have a lot of nostalgia for. And of the original trilogy, it's the one I've seen the least.
Mm-hmm. And
I think that's a lot of it. I don't like that they're... I like all the individual adventures that are going on in X2. But I really don't like how split up everyone is for most of it. I kind of want to see all these characters interact with each other. And it's the entry in the franchise I think about the least.
I get that.
Which is interesting, because most people... Not most, but there is a strong, like, current out there that will put X2 at the very top of the franchise.
Yeah.
And I think it's totally fine. And that's all my thoughts.
I mean, yeah, if they've watched the previous episodes, especially the X2 one, they know how, like, instrumental that movie was, particularly in my childhood. So obviously it's higher up on my list. No, I'm not disagreeing with anything you said.
No, I'm not even trying to negate you, but I remember in the X2 episode you said, like, it definitely dropped in stature.
It did. No, it used to be like the holy grail of cinema when I was a young boy, and now it's like it's a good movie.
And you've grown up, and that's okay.
Yes. Not speaking of, you hold this movie in higher regard than I do. My number 7 is The Last Stand.
I can't fault you at all. I like that movie way more than most people.
Yeah.
It's a dumb movie, but I like it a lot.
Yeah.
I'll have my small... I mean, I mostly defended it in our episode. I'll have my small Last Stance defense when I get to it. But, yeah, that's a totally respectable number 7.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess it's my turn?
Yeah, there's only... I'm going to guess my 6 and my 5 are ones you're gonna be like, okay.
Like they're too low or they're too high?
They're too... Well, one's too low, one's too high.
One's too high. I know which one's too high.
Yes. By the fact I'm at number 7 and I haven't said it yet, you know which one's too high.
So is it my number 7 now?
Yes.
It's Days of Future Past.
Okay.
It's really interesting that it's 3 Bryan Singers in a row.
Mm-hmm.
It's just utter... I have very similar feelings about Days of Future Past that I do about X2. It's just like totally fine, and just I don't think about it a lot. It's just I feel like it's just like, which is weird because I feel like a lot of people would consider Days of Future Past to be like one of the best one. It's the one that made the most money. It was a huge fucking hit.
Mm-hmm.
I think even in Justice for Inflation, I think it's the one that made the most money. It's fun. It's fine. I don't think about it a lot. And there are things like Apocalypse. There's like, I think about Apocalypse a lot more. I think Apocalypse is a more interesting movie.
Yeah.
The things that I really like in Apocalypse, like there's nothing in Last Stand. Sorry, not Last Stand. There's nothing in Days of Future Past that I really like outside of like the Quicksilver scene. And fucking everyone likes the Quicksilver scene. That's not unique.
Yeah.
One of these days I'll have to watch that Rogue Cut and see if it's any better. I don't fucking.
Yeah.
I love Anna Paquin, but I doubt that it'll improve my feelings on this movie a lot. I don't know, it's Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Okay, so my number 6, which is controversial to you for one reason, is the first X-Men.
That's totally fine.
Okay. I just know that you love it. You like it more than I do.
I love it. I have an affection for that movie that most people don't. I don't feel like people hate the first X-Men.
No.
I feel like it's just the entry in the franchise that people probably talk about the least. I have a weird nostalgia for that movie. I'll get to it when we get to my ranking.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I said my piece during our episode. I feel like that's what is it? Your 7?
My 6.
That's a respectable place. 6 out of 10's not bad.
Yeah.
So we're getting to my
your 6.
my 6. My 6 is Dark Phoenix.
Okay. Wow.
Which is surprising. I thought it would be much lower, but it's not. I think the movie kind of works. I mean, we pointed out all the logic flaws and stuff, but I think it works for the most part. I think it deserves better. I feel like these actors who were kind of given nothing in a couple entries or given something interesting to do. I think even Jennifer Lawrence is happy to be there. I mean, I think it helps that she's not in it for much.
Yeah.
But I feel it's just like I'm actually given some good material, and with a director I respect more, etc., etc. I think she's more comfortable in the makeup. The makeup is different if you notice. It's lighter, so I think it's a different material. And again, she's just in the suit, so she only has to do the face and the hands. And there's a couple scenes where she's just looks like Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah.
And again, she's only like the first half hour. Yeah, I think the movie deserves better than what it has, and I was surprised how much I liked it on the second watch.
Yeah. So my number 5 is X-Men Origins Wolverine.
It's fucking absurd that it's in your top.
Here's the... I agree with everything you said about it. For me, that movie is just pure fun. It is it's a pixie stick of a movie for me. And I have so much fun with it.
I can't blame you for that. I'm glad you had fun with it.
Oh, it's so good.
It's just whatever. I'm glad you're happy.
I like him cutting up the fire escape. I like Dominic Moynihan and his light bulb. I like Sabretooth running on all fours.
I love Liev Schreiber.
I love Liev Schreiber. Yeah. That movie is so dumb, but there's so much of it I find so endearing, and like I've never liked the Blob stuff. The Blob stuff's probably the one scene I just don't like.
Yeah.
But the movie is it's so much fun. Will.i.am, where Sabretooth grabs his spine and just like you see him like freaking out. It's so good. It's a pixie stick of a movie, like I said. It's just pure sugar, and it just works for me.
It makes my teeth hurt, but I'm glad you had fun with it. I can't. Top 5's absurd, but I can't.
I know.
Why you like it. I can't fault you for why you like it. But top 5's absurd. I don't hate that movie, so I can't. Whatever. It's your ranking. You have fun being wrong. I mean, I put people are looking at me like I'm the Joker because I put fucking Dark Phoenix above X-Men First Class and X2. So both
not
of these
First
are
Class
controversial in their own way. No, not First
You
Class.
said Days of Future Past and X2.
Yeah, Days of Future Past. Yeah. Okay, so is it my turn?
It's your 5, which I know what your 5 is, so I accidentally stumbled upon your letterbox list.
Yeah.
Which is ironic.
My 5 is the Wolverine. Both of our 10s
are each other's 5s.
Are 5s. I mean, I said this in our Wolverine episode. I think the first 75% of the Wolverine fucking rocks. And then the last third just sucks. Like, the third act is just terrible. Not terrible. Like, it's not ruinous, but, like, this would be, like, number 2 or number 3. And that, like, the Silver Samurai stuff just drops it.
Yeah.
I mentioned I don't like the forcing of... I forget the character's name, but the rich woman he's trying to protect, the daughter.
Is it Moriko? Is that her name?
I think Moriko's his little, like, pink-haired friend.
I don't recall.
I mean, it's terrible that we're forgetting the 2 Japanese female characters' names, but it's mainly just because we haven't watched these movies in, like, 3 months.
Yeah.
I think I love the samurai stuff. I love the stuff in Canada. I love that it's like a little thriller. I love all the elements that he's working with, and I just think the last, like, 20 minutes is just really dumb. And I think they should have kept the Wolverine suit, but even if they did, they would have disregarded in Days of Future Past, which is probably why they cut it to begin with.
Yeah.
I guess I should be saying Bryan Singer should have had the balls to do the Wolverine suit in Days of Future Past, especially because it only would have been in the future stuff. Whatever. I think the first, like, hour and a half is just really, really solid, and I'm really enjoying it. On, like, even more so than Logan. It's just that last way down. And the Silver Samurai stuff in the Wolverine hurts the Wolverine way more than the X-24 stuff hurts Logan. Yeah. So it would have been higher. I really love most of that movie, and then it's just kind of...
Big stinky.
Not even big stinky. It's just like, alright, you're just like every other superhero movie.
Yeah.
It loses its individuality. And I said my piece where I don't like bone claws, and I don't like to get pedantic about physics. I said this before, but the physics of the Silver Samurai fight makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah,
especially because, like, I mean, it's not like a realistic movie, but the reality within the Wolverine was fairly grounded. I felt like to a cinematic extent, and then it just sort of loses its footing.
My number 4, Steve, is X-Men: Days of Future Past. A lot of what doesn't work for you works for me. I'm like you mentioned, everyone loves the Quicksilver stuff. I think, oddly enough, that's maybe, with the exception of Logan, which we'll get to very soon, that is, like, probably one of my that's not a word. One of my more favorite Hugh Jackman performances. Even though Wolverine is very much a plot device in it, I do like the Logan stuff we get. I am a Bone Claws fan.
Yeah, I think it's one of his worst performances, and it's not on him. I think it's just on the stuff he's given to do, which is not much.
I like the Fassbender stuff a lot. I think Harry Knight Charles is pretty cool. Not cool, but you know what I mean? I like the aesthetic of that, even though it doesn't, like, work at all with, like, how his, like, spine's repaired by this serum.
It's a movie about mutants.
Yeah. I love not just the Quicksilver scene, but the whole Pentagon thing in general.
Yeah, it's a really cool set piece.
It's a movie that, like, in a different way than X-Men Origins Wolverine, it just, like, connects with me in a weird way. Like, I'm just, like, thoroughly, like, connected to this movie throughout the whole thing.
What are we at now?
You're 4.
My number 4? My number 4, probably the most controversial ranking of the entire thing, is X-Men: The Last Stand. This movie, it's probably everything that you feel about X-Men Origins Wolverine.
Yeah.
I feel about The Last Stand. All the dumb stuff I just think is really fun. And then I think it's actually, like, a fairly satisfying narrative on top of it, where a lot of people pick apart the Dark Phoenix stuff and the Cure stuff to death, but I think it just kind of works on an emotional level. I mean, like, every nitpick I have with the movie we said in our 55-minute rant, there's stuff to be upset about. Brett Ratner is a bad person, but I think he's a very talented director, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And I defended his, camera work and his, sense of direction. That's a very, spatial geography is what I mean.
Yeah.
I feel like that movie is way too unfairly maligned, especially because, like, I understand why it wasn't well liked when it came out, But now that we have the perspective of this entire franchise, I feel like people, I don't know, I feel like certain, like nerds and comic book movie people in particular, like hold grudges for a really long time, and they're not willing to reevaluate things that quote unquote burned them. And I feel like if people gave it a second shot, I feel like it would, I think it holds up really well. I think it's just fun, and I think the action's really good, and whatever. It's X-Men: The Last Stand. I think it's dumb, and I like it. We're getting to the big stuff.
Yes.
Number 3s.
My number 3, which is one that jumped up exponentially on a rewatch, is Logan.
Yeah.
I think
Same.
it's just incredibly
it's
solid.
also my number 3.
Yeah. I know we have 1 and 3 in common, but but yeah, no, Logan, we'll talk about at the same time then. It's just good. It's just an incredibly solid movie.
I have nothing to add. I feel
Yeah,
like our
it's just,
hour and a half episode.
Yeah, it's just incredibly solid.
Yeah.
So let me go to my number 2 now, which is different. My 2, coincidentally, is X2.
Yeah.
I
figured it would be.
Yeah, it has a deep connection to me since it's one of the first movies I ever remember watching. And it always has that magic to me. I think even while it's not still as good, it went from like above a 5 to like a good 4. There's many moments in that just like are so like my voice is cracking so bad. There are many moments in that are like iconic to me. Like obviously the Nightcrawler scene in the beginning, the scene in the church, Mystique in the bathroom stall with the guy, him even though it doesn't look good with the VFX now, the ripping the guy's iron from his blood. Like
I remember the iron. What bathroom stall?
Remember the guards in a bar and Mystique's like Rebecca Romaine being all hot and she just learns like she like yeah. Music.
See, that's my point. I really don't remember much of X2.
Maybe because I was so young and I didn't know what was happening, but that like frame is like seared into my brain. Like that guy like in the bathroom stall, like the little like poison on his neck.
Yeah.
No, it's something that's just it's always gonna have like a place in my heart, and I think it has somewhat clouded my decision.
Yeah.
There was. Like I told you, or I don't know if it's on this recording or not, but I told you my 1 through 5 are really easy. The 6 through 10 is really hard. Mm-hmm. But this and my number 1, I thought about swapping, but I also thought about swapping this and Logan for number 3. It was a thing where it's like, I can't deny that like my past with the movie is playing a part in my decision. Same thing with X-Men Origins Wolverine to a lesser extent.
Yeah.
But incredibly solid. So your 2,
No.
Steve?
I can't blame you though. It's a solid movie. I mean, my 2 is probably unsurprisingly X-Men, the original, from 2000. Basically for a lot of the same reasons that you love X2. I've seen this movie 10,000 times, and it just works for me. I mean, like everything positive because I was like, I don't know. I feel like I pretty much said everything in our episode. I feel like it's really comic booky. I think it's a lot of fun. It just fucking moves. It moves like a freight train. It just chugs along, clean, crisp 104-minute running time. It's just I don't know, it's so much fucking fun. I've seen it a million times. I can recite it like the back of my hand, and it's I mean, here's the thing, a good chunk of it is nostalgia, yes, but I think it's just a solid little blockbuster. I think it's just a fun little movie, and like I mentioned in our episode, it's a similar reason that I appreciate Logan, and to a lesser extent our mutual number 1. It's much more focused, smaller stakes movie than most of this franchise, which is a little freewheeling at times, which makes total sense because the X-Men is just this massive universe to work within. I think it's a really great introduction to this entire franchise, and I just love it. It's just I just love this little movie.
Okay. So now, obviously, they know what our number 1 is. It's the only one left.
It's First Class.
Yes.
It's X-Men First Class. I will say it's lost a little bit of its luster in our last rewatch. Mm-hmm. I feel like the third act didn't work for me as much, but it's just undeniable. It's just such a fun movie. The world building and stuff is great. The performances feel so fresh. Mm-hmm. It's just a great reinvention. It was like a real shot in the arm for this entire franchise, and so much of my goodwill for some even the more lackluster entries that have come since it comes from this movie.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to add?
No, we pretty well. That's the only bad thing about the way we do this is we've spent like most of these
hours.
Like an hour talking about the movie. So when we get to this point, we're just like, it's really good. Go back to a couple months ago where I said this.
Our First Class episode
is the worst.
Have you?
I did
I
rewatch
disagree.
it. Yeah. It's the best, but it's also the worst.
We are so off topic for most of it.
Yeah.
A part of it is just because it's fucking First Class. What is there to talk about?
I like how the thumbnail is me doing the Wolverine hands being Charlie
Yeah.
Heaton.
Yeah. No, it's so freewheeling because it was like most of these. It was recorded very late at night.
Yeah.
But it's so tangenty because you have the added chaos of Bridget. But it was also that was the day we found out we had to go home because of COVID.
Mm-hmm.
So we're just like, fuck it.
No, it's sad watching, like, obviously if you guys don't know me, I only know it because I know me enough.
Yeah.
Where, like, you can watch Orton's Wolverine, The Wolverine, and First Class. I'm sad. Like, I'm legitimately, like, I'm bummed out those 3 episodes. And you can clearly tell the difference of personality from, like, X3 to that is clear as day.
The difference in personality for me is mainly First Class, because I'm mostly keeping it together for Origins Wolverine. That's also like a very short episode for us.
It is, yeah.
But the episode that I'm the most sad is Days of Future Past, because all 3 of us just look exhausted.
Yeah.
I mean, Dan is literally falling asleep.
He is.
But I'm just like, it's Days of Future Past. I don't fucking know.
Yeah. No. No, it's funny though. There's just a slump. Like 30% of this, I'm just gonna tell like I'm miserable recording this,
Yeah.
and I'm so happy to be with my friends.
You are very distant. It's very good that Bridget was on those episodes.
Oh, dude,
because it's just.
If it was just me and you, we probably had like a 7-minute episode.
So yeah, he fights the Blob.
He fights the Blob. I know. I like
Connor,
it. Yeah.
In our raw recording, I mean, this will be edited down slightly probably, but we've reached 2 hours.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my phone's about to die soon.
Oh God, plug it in.
Well, I'm going to. We're gonna be done soon here in a minute. But yeah, Steve, it's the end of an era.
I'm really happy we did this.
Me too.
I'm upset. I mean, I mostly said this in our Apocalypse episode. I'm upset we couldn't finish this in person together.
Yeah.
But I think this worked out better than I thought it would.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really excited for nobody to see these.
Yeah.
And I think we can announce to.
Yeah, I was there. We're gonna tell them our
audience,
next series.
Our not audience. Are we gonna announce our next series?
Yeah,
or we should just,
go for it.
I mean, have we finally decided? Are we doing Carrie next? For
I
sure?
mean, I thought we were, so I had in my mind.
Okay.
What about we're doing Tom Hardy playing real life criminals?
So for our completely non-audience out there, we are taking a break from an actual franchise.
Yes.
A very brief reprieve. We will be focusing on the filmography of one young lad, specifically in 1 year. We're not doing it. We thought about doing the entire filmography, but someone beat us to it. We are going to talk about Jim Carrey's 1994, because he had 3 movies come out in 1 calendar year that skyrocketed him to stardom in the way that, honestly, I don't think I can think of anyone else.
No.
I can think of people who had like 2 movies in very short succession where it's just like, whoa, but like 3 movies in 1 year, to the point where the 3rd movie wasn't even made before the first one came out, and like if they had signed him 2 weeks earlier, they could have gotten him for a 4th the cost.
Yeah.
We'll get to that when we get to that, but so we'll be talking about first Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, which is the one I'm looking forward to the least.
Me too.
The Mask, childhood favorite, The Mask, and is this your favorite movie of all time?
It is my favorite R-rated comedy. It is the movie I've seen.
It's not R-rated.
Oh, excuse me, backwards.
Yeah.
It's a favorite PG-13 rated comedy. Connor trivia. My favorite R-rated comedy is Step Brothers, but and that's my favorite PG-13 comedy. It's the movie I've seen the most, at 25 times. This will be the 26th time I have watched Dumb and Dumber.
When's the last time you've watched it?
It's been years.
Interesting.
There was a, you know this, but there was a year where me and my dad watched Dumb and Dumber every weekend for half a year.
Which is insane. I have seen all of these movies. I've seen The Mask the most. We'll elaborate more. I'm excited to do this. Connor suggested this, and I'm like, oh, that's actually it's a pretty good idea. I'm really excited. Like, again, we were talking about this off camera last week.
It was last week, yeah.
And we were going through his entire filmography. It was like, we should do it all. We should play the. Jim Carrey has had a fascinating career.
Yes.
But there's some other podcasts that beat us to it, and it's too much of an investment for us. So I'm really excited just to talk about this one snapshot, like the real important trilogy, I would say. And then after that, we'll get into more franchisey stuff. We'll probably do another smaller one. Connor and I have a couple of videos brewing, and then we'll hop back into a major one. Again, absolutely no one is watching right now.
After this, we're doing Trolls.
Yes, we're doing both Trolls, all the holiday specials as well.
Yes.
The 2D Netflix animated series, which probably exists. They have some sort of fucking deal with DreamWorks.
Yeah.
So anyway, Connor, we're at the end. This is probably going to be... Well, no, it's definitely our longest episode. It's just whether or not we actually...
Until we get to Trolls.
Excuse me, until we get to Trolls
World Tour. It's when I talk about the 5 strings.
I'll have I'll have 20 minutes just on the McElroy brothers' 6 lines the movie. This has been so much fun. I'm so glad to revisit all these movies. I can't wait to not watch any of them for like 5 more years.
Oh yeah, dude, me too.
That's not true. I might revisit the original X-Men again, but probably the others I might leave behind for a while.
And I'm excited to come back in roughly 3-ish months for New Mutants, hopefully.
Maybe. I mean, at this point, did you read my Letterboxd review for Dark Phoenix?
Yes, I did.
I'll read it for the audience just to get it out of the way, if it will fucking let me. Letterboxd load, please. So I have been logging all of these on my Letterboxd account, ladies and gentlemen, and for all these X-Men reviews, I was just part of the X-Pedition. But for Dark Phoenix, I said the X-Pedition concludes, and with an asterisk, at least until New Mutants comes out, aka when our sun slowly burns out, ever expanding and consuming the Earth into a fiery hellscape. Where did you go?
I'm getting my phone charger. You were talking.
I click back, ladies and gentlemen, and Connor is just...
But Steve, gone. You know what's the funny thing now? Is they would have never known, because the camera would have focused on you. But since I talked, they cut back to my empty bed. They would have never known.
You're not doing split screen for these? For our, you're only using the audio. But...
Yeah. Wow, way to dox me right here on the Google Hangout.
And that's staying in.
Okay, I'll keep it in.
It's fun. I don't think we have to cut much from this episode.
No, the only thing I love doing these. I love it. The only thing I'm dreading while editing it, is watching the entire things over again to find like little spaces we need to cut. That's the only thing I'm dreading.
I mean, our earlier ones aren't cut that much.
No, it's just
as much as you want to do.
Yeah.
I feel like here's the thing. It was Logan that we got into a bunch of Oscars chat?
Yeah.
Do not cut that. That's all gold.
I'll keep the Oscars chat. I'm cutting something I'm not going to mention here because we're cutting it. But, yeah. So, Steve, which we need to do our outro. But also, I'm excited to see what outro we do for Jim Carrey. Because, statistically, just because we did X-Men line for this one, it's probably going to be an Ace Ventura line.
You're lying. Yeah.
So I'm curious to see which one we do. I hope it's meant to ask you a question.
I have not watched this movie since I was 8 years old. I remember so little. Also, I mean, we'll get into it when we get to it. Connor, I love you, my boy.
Oh, I love you too, Dad.
Charles to my Eric.
I thought you were gonna do I thought you were doing the outro. So I was like, yes, Steve.
No.
Yeah,
you're the Charles to my Eric. Say goodbye to Eric, ladies and gentlemen.
Bye, Eric. Bye, Magneto.
The fucking this duct tape has ruined my television.
Oh,
it
I'm sure.
stains both the pop figure and the television. I'm gonna have to get like some sort of spritzer for it, because it's been up here for a week and a half, and it kept falling over. So I kept retaping it because I didn't want to take it down and tape it back every time. And none of this matters, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. We'll be back at some point. No one's watching. We're shouting to the void. This is for us. This is Daddy's time to play. This is for these 2 boys specifically. And goodbye, Mutants.
Goodbye, Mutants.
It was a hell of a ride until
we get some new ones.
Yeah, until we get some new ones, and we'll cover some old ones to get to the new ones.
Yeah, we'll cover an old one played by Ryan Reynolds.
One singular Ryan.
Ryan Reynolds.
Connor,
Yeah.
we are the future, Charles.
Not them.
They no longer matter.